Welcome, I'm Amy Jensen. Today I'll be talking about the energies of Sagittarius and Jupiter. The Sun moves into the sign of Sagittarius November 21st at 2:40 p.m. Central Time, and it will stay in the sign of Sagittarius until December 21st, when it will move into the sign of Capricorn, marking the winter solstice. Currently, the moon's nodes are in, south node is in Sagittarius and the north node is in Gemini. And so we'll talk more about that in upcoming videos with the Gemini full moon and then the Sagittarius new moon. But today I'd just like to lay the groundwork as far as some keywords and symbolic associations, just to start out the month so you can use these in any way you'd like. Drawing in any of the energies in your yoga practices or breath work, or decorating your meditation altar, just being aware of these energies. Sagittarius is a masculine, mutable fire sign ruled by the planet Jupiter, and it's archetypally associated with the 9th house. Keywords. We'll start off with keywords with Sagittarius. First of all, start off with this, but then we'll go to this. This is the symbol glyph for Sagittarius. It's an arrow. Sagittarius is one of the double-bodied signs. It's the archer, the centaur, you might see it as that. So the man and the horse. Gemini is another double-bodied sign, the twins, and then Pisces, the two fishes connected together. All of those three are mutable. Keywords for Sagittarius: idealistic, expansive, philosophical, optimistic, generous, honest, inspirational, prophetic, frank, cheerful, just, dependable, buoyant, magnanimous, benevolent, and having integrity would be another descriptor. Shadow Sagittarius: being spiritual or religiously naive, superior, having a sense of blind faith or gullibility, impractical, impatient, self-righteous, spendthrift, or uncompromising. And again, these are just keywords to get it started. I always kind of hate when I do this, then it's like kind of limiting, but again, this is just a kind of start. Physically, Sagittarius rules the liver, the hips, the thighs, and the blood. And I would consider it red blood, red blood cells instead of the white blood cells, which I would associate with Mars and its defense of the body. Colors associated with Sagittarius are orange or yellow. Going back to that optimism or buoyancy as far as color therapy, and especially heading into the winter here in the Northern Hemisphere, warmer colors, of course, add warmth and optimism to the body and to the mind. Some essential oils associated with Sagittarius are cedarwood and sandalwood, and both of those are very good for purifying and cleansing an area and elevating the energy to make it more of a spiritual energy. The Bach remedy associated with Sagittarius is agrimony. And with agrimony, we move from the role of peacemaker and mask wearer to honestly expressing one's true emotions. So sometimes Sagittarius can have that optimistic mask and buoyant nature, but it might be just that which they project at times. And I think sometimes that can be the part of Sagittarius. Well, that and the self-righteousness, but besides that, they're all good. No, I mean, but that can be the part that gets a little big in a Sagittarius. And I have some wonderful friends and people in my life who have that Sagittarius energy, and they are so much fun to be around. They increase the fun factor, but when the shadow side comes forward, it can be, like I said, really off-putting because there is that sense of self-righteousness, like they are right about everything, which I think is interesting when we do talk about the nodes of the moon and the south node being in Sagittarius. There's so much, well, I would say beliefs would be a big one with Sagittarius. There's so much emphasis on everyone's believing in something, and you have to believe this. Oh my gosh, like even among yoga people, I find there's this urgency to tell you what they believe and what you should believe. And the opposite of that is the North Node in Gemini, which is let's take all the information in, let's all sit at this big conference room, every person with every belief, from every background and every race, every religion. Let's all just come together and let's talk and hear each other. But of course, then we could say Shadow Gemini, there may not be a lot of listening involved. So sometimes with Sagittarius and Gemini, we might not get that sense of listening. But the wonderful part of Sagittarius is when it flips into a broadness of thinking, a broad-mindedness. Sagittarius has that energy of, well, pilgrimage and pilgrims would be associated with Sagittarius. And so it's not to become, part of it is to have a belief system. So you set up a belief system. And then at some point, find oneself enmeshed in that belief system. Like, this is my belief system. This is what I believe. This is it. It's here, right? So then the next part of Sagittarius is, it's the archer. The archer doesn't just stop, hey, I hit the target. Awesome, let's stop there. No, I hit the target. I've integrated that whole new target experience. I've broadened my boundaries from where I was to a bigger understanding. But now it's kind of become part of my daily belief. It's become what I do, like I said, how I operate. And so now it's time for the archer to set their sights on another target. So they shoot the arrow farther. They go farther beyond where they're comfortable. So if Gemini rules neighbors and quick associations, wow, I'm kind of flipping into the full moon stuff that I'll cover, but I guess that gives me an opportunity to cover something else then, right? So Gemini is third house and like everyday things, and Sagittarius is going beyond that. So it's putting yourself with strangers or foreigners, okay? So I did that scary tone because of all those unknown people out there, right? So we set that target a little bit farther. We go out with those foreigners, those new people to have new experiences. And then we go to a foreign land, we're around foreign people, we have these new experiences, and then once again we broaden our horizons. We start again realizing that, yes, I have my belief system, but this place I just visited, these strangers, these new foreign people, foreign lands, foreign ideas, also have their basis in their belief system. So there's respect. There's this high energy of respect that could and hopefully does associate with Sagittarius. Many times we liken it to college professor, higher learning, something. Again, you kind of all collect in this classroom from different places, and theoretically you are invited to blossom and grow your knowledge and awareness while still remaining yourself, but placing yourself in different environments. All right, that was a big tangent, and hopefully successfully edited some of that rambling out. Sagittarius medically, it depicts, this is from Jane Ritter Patrick, by the way, it depicts the sign's association with the integration of the instinctual and higher centers of the brain and the movement forward toward new horizons, integrating new and old experiences. The brain distilling two sets of information: past emotional experiences and current intellectual information and sensation. Sagittarius not only ruling the hips and the thighs, the largest muscles of the body are in the thighs, allowing the body to travel. The cerebrum, particularly the left hemisphere, reasoning powers, integration of the endocrine and nervous system to give a meaningful response to stimuli, locomotion, lower spinal cord, and the ability of the eyes to focus. So again, there's that focusing on a target. There's an integration. Health conditions linked to Sagittarius: hip and thigh injuries, sciatica, brain maladies, whether these are mental illnesses or physical illnesses, sports injuries, and disorders related to locomotion. So sports, as far as Sagittarius concerned, I always think of horse racing. Mars, I always think of boxing. So those are my little tidbits for that. The planet that rules Sagittarius is Jupiter. And I haven't, I'll have to check to see if this is flipped. Jupiter looks like the number 4, so if it doesn't look like the number 4, you're going to have to flip it. But the symbol of Jupiter, this part here, is the crescent of the mind, above and slightly to the left of the cross of materiality. So there's a sense of the mind being higher than the material world. And because the cross is slightly, or excuse me, the crescent is slightly to the left, there's an element of the intuition that needs to come in to this equation with Sagittarius. Don't always, a lot of times I do this as an astrologer. I let Cancer have intuition, or Pisces, but there's a different type of intuition that comes in with Jupiter and Sagittarius that has more to do with faith and connecting to something greater than you. Again, kind of that spiritual aspect of the Sagittarius. Jupiter, of course, is our largest planet in our solar system, so there's a sense of expansion with Jupiter. By transit or in your natal chart, it always expands, and it's considered the greater benefic. So always such a good sign, such a good planet, excuse me. However, it expands. So depending on how it's configured in your chart, it can expand too much. So there can be problems of too much in your body, too much of anything. All right. So Jupiter also connecting with a higher reality so that we can frame our life more widely. It expands the big picture. It asks us to go beyond and to look to the larger context. It does have the ability to infect, like as an infection or a wound. And I also think of sometimes with death, Jupiter plays a part as far as being a liberator of form. Usually we don't look at Jupiter as much when someone is passing, but if there's a liberation of the body, say after a long illness or injury, Jupiter can come along and help move along that soul. Jupiter represents where we'd like to be naturally expansive. So wherever it is in your chart or wherever it is moving through your chart, you have an opportunity to expand. The shadow Jupiter is unawareness or unwillingness or a fear of saying no or not knowing where to stop. I know for myself, I have a natural optimism with my Jupiter. I really do think that anything's possible, but then I get caught up in my own belief when I'm around people who are super limited or like to place things in that context, and I find myself getting really annoyed with that. And so it's interesting. So that's my belief. My other problem with Jupiter in my own chart is not knowing when to say no. I've just run myself ragged, saying yes to everyone, and just spreading myself too thin. So just throwing that out there to see where you resonate with Jupiter. Another planetary lesson with Jupiter is learning to honor others' minds as we expand our own, not imposing our beliefs upon others, removing greed, excess, and sloppiness from ourselves. In the yogic tradition, Jupiter is associated with the Vishnu force, the force of preservation. Jupiter tends to favor orthodox established religions. It is also associated with Ganesha, freeing us, as I said, with death from our limitations. Jupiter is a mixture of love and intellect. Hail, fellow, well met is a Jupiter-like saying. And I don't know where I got that. I don't know if that was in an old Max Heindel book or something Kriyananda said. So I'm sorry, but that's something I picked up somewhere, and I don't know whom to credit. So with Jupiter, the time it takes to go around the sun is 12 years. So every time you can look back when Jupiter moves through one of the houses in your chart. You can look back 12 years ago, 24, 36, depending on your age, and see what was going on in your life and see what you might expect during that Jupiter cycle. So it stays in each sign about a year. It stays depending on the amount of degrees in each of your houses. So 30 degrees for a year for Jupiter. It rules Thursday along with Pisces and Neptune, and the chakra associated with Jupiter is the Svadhisthana, sacral chakra. Sva means one's own, and Adhisthana is a dwelling place or home. So it's coming into that center of the pelvis that we find our home, our abode in the body. And as you know, just even sitting here, kind of tilting the pelvis a bit, sitting forward and backward on the sit bones a little bit, finding your comfortable seat and place from which the spine lifts up and the crown of the head lifts up. All right, let me see. Jupiter represents in the body, the cerebrum, particularly the left hemisphere, and its role in the integrative function of the brain, memory, and reasoning powers. Neptune rules the right hemisphere, nonverbal function, emotions, and intuitive thinking. Jupiter represents the motor response to meaning. It responds to the morale of the body and arterial blood flow. Jupiter is associated with the nourishing and protective properties of blood, since Jupiter is protective, supportive, and generous. Poorly aspected, again, too much. In this example, blood. And it rules the fat metabolism in the liver. So that's also another super fun thing that can happen with a Jupiter transit is you can gain a lot of weight and get a little sloppy and enjoy a little bit too much sugar or alcohol or something like that. Diseases associated with Jupiter would be tumors or blood disorders, hemorrhaging, stroke, lung disease, especially tuberculosis, liver disease, especially fatty, degenerated, hyperglycemia associated with liver problems, cognitive disorders, and locomotor disorders. Mythologically associated with Zeus or Thor, Some of the colors, azure, sometimes green, sometimes orange, I think of with the sacral chakra, of course, but always an invitation to see what your associations are with this planet, because this is what we are doing, is you are building your own symbolic bridge and relationship with these energies. All right, I'm going to move on to the Sabian symbol for 1 degree Sagittarius. And this is from Zodiac Degrees by Martin Goldsmith. The statement is, on a steep bluff, Army veterans reminisce around a dying campfire while their leader surveys the countryside by the light of the rising sun. Descriptive phrases, looking toward new possibilities when an old trip is burnt out. Setting clear goals that challenge one's best talents. Figuring out which life battles really matter. Ignoring unimportant problems and strengthening one's heart for the fights ahead. Superhuman efforts. Daring adventures. Willingness to suffer for one's ideals. Social vision. Individual effort that inspires the group. Lighting a fire under people. Instigating collective action based on a clear vision of the future. Cooperation and comradeship based on shared ideals. Enlisting the aids of others. Team effort versus sturdy self-reliance. Long-range plans. Foresight. Periodically reassessing one's progress toward grander goals. It's been an interesting morning of interruptions. Just got interrupted by a phone call. My Instagram class this morning was interrupted and I didn't even notice it until the end of the class. So I think that's a good indicator from the universe that I have talked quite long enough in true Jupiterian fashion. I've expanded this video past what I had really wanted to. So I'm just going to wrap up with a few cards and then we'll do more at the upcoming videos for the full moon and the new moon. So here we go with the tarot card is Temperance, and this is from the Muka Tarot. At the place where the water kisses the land, a maiden performs a mystical rite to restore spiritual harmony. Pouring water from a smaller vessel to a larger vessel is symbolic of the single soul being part of the great soul. When we are in a divine connection with all that is, we are in balance in our individual selves as well. The maiden stands in the waters of life, which flow from a common source to all parts of the universe. You too stand in that living stream. You too pour the offering of your spirit into the greater vessel of humanity. Doing so restores you to a perfect state of harmony, for you are honoring the commitment you made when you took human form. So key ideas are mystical union, grace, connection to oneness, balance, and serenity. The tarot card associated with Jupiter is the Wheel. The Wheel, with no beginning and no end, the wheel symbolizes the eternal cycles of change, the stages of life, the seasons of the year, the phases of the moon. Everything in our human experience is in constant state of change. The windmill in the distance is a reminder that all of these changes are grist for the mill. What may seem like a loss now can turn to an unexpected advantage in time. Sorrowful events bring with them the gifts of wisdom and depth of character. But change must be acknowledged in the happy times as well. No joy lasts forever. The sands of the hourglass mark the precious moments as they pass. The message of the wheel is to find your place in the circle of life, as well as in the timeless experience of eternity. Keywords: time, eternity, the temporal world, the inevitability of change, fortune, and luck. And then, lastly, an animal spirit card. And this is associated with the nakshatra that the sun will be in when it ingresses. And it is the nakshatra of Anuradha. The animal associated with this is the deer spirit. And this is from Colette Baron-Reid's beautiful deck. So the deer spirit invites us to bring a gentle touch. Oracle message. The time has come to be gentle and diplomatic when dealing with others. You might have found yourself in a situation where negotiations are necessary in order to reach your goal. Be mindful of the words you choose, but do not worry. Dear Spirit reminds you that you have the ability to be sure-footed and confident while showing humility and respect for others. You will find that your capacity for calm and grounded communication is heightened at this time. Follow the way of Dear Spirit and you will do well, gaining the respect of others and finding common ground that is pleasing to you. Remember that understanding others and their needs will be more powerful at this time than putting your own first. If you do that, you will be rewarded tenfold. All right, just an introduction, a bit lengthy at that, but an introduction into Sagittarius energy as the sun moves into the sign. And then we'll meet again at reflection, which is the full moon with Gemini, having the reflection of the Sagittarius sun in the face of the Gemini full moon. And then lastly, the new moon of Sagittarius, where we're initiated into the energy of the sign. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining me and being patient with me as I kind of muddle through here this morning. But just thank you as always. It's a great joy to share this, and I hope you had fun. Namaste.